Bruce Lee's 6-year-old son walked away from a bully. An ex-NFL linebacker said that made Bruce a terrible father. Bruce's response became neighborhood legend. April 17, 1971. Griffith Park Playground, Los Angeles. Brandon Lee, 6 years old, had his sandcastle destroyed by a bigger kid. Instead of fighting back, Brandon walked away. Exactly what Bruce had taught him. Fighting is the last option. Always. But Mike Garrett, 6'4", 340 pounds, former LA Rams linebacker, had different ideas about raising boys. Your kid's a coward. You're teaching him to be weak. Real men fight back. What kind of father raises a son who runs from confrontation? Bruce stood up, 5'7", 145 pounds, looked at the giant who outweighed him by 200 pounds. You want to teach my son what real masculinity looks like? Hit me. Right now. Show him. Show everyone. I won't even defend myself. What happened next changed how the entire neighborhood thought about strength, fatherhood, and what it really means to be a man. The morning had started perfectly. Saturday, April 17, 1971, 10:45 a.m. Bruce Lee pulled his car into the Griffith Park Playground parking lot with his 6-year-old son Brandon bouncing excitedly in the passenger seat. This was their ritual. Every Saturday morning, weather permitting, Bruce took Brandon to the playground while Linda got a few hours to herself with their daughter Shannon, who was only 18 months old and required constant attention. These Saturday mornings were sacred. Father and son time. No training. No philosophy lessons. No pressure. Just Bruce being a dad and Brandon being a kid. Playing. Laughing. Building sandcastles and climbing jungle gyms and going down slides. Normal childhood things that Bruce's own childhood in Hong Kong hadn't included much of. Bruce had spent his childhood training, performing in his father's opera company, working, surviving. He wanted something different for Brandon. Wanted his son to have the childhood Bruce hadn't had. The freedom, the play, the safety to just be a kid. Can we build a really big castle today, Daddy? Like the biggest one ever? Brandon asked as they walked from the car toward the playground. He was small for his age, took after Bruce's build rather than Linda's taller frame, but energetic, curious, constantly asking questions about everything. As big as you want, Bruce said. You're the architect. I'm just the assistant. Brandon grinned. He loved when his father talked to him like he was grown up, like his ideas mattered, like he was capable of big things. The playground was already busy. Saturday morning was peak time. Families from all over this part of Los Angeles. Mixed neighborhood, working class, mostly blend of white, Asian, Latino families brought their kids here. The playground equipment was old, installed in the early 60s. Metal slides that got burning hot in summer. Wooden jungle gym that gave splinters. Rusty swing set that squeaked. Sand-filled sandbox that cats used as a litter box overnight and that the park service rake cleaned every morning. It wasn't fancy, but it was community. It was shared space. It was where neighborhood kids learned to navigate social dynamics, sharing, conflict, friendship. Bruce and Brandon had been coming here for 2 years. Since Brandon was 4, Bruce knew most of the regular families by sight, if not by name. Recognized the Korean-American family, the Parks, Mother Susan, Father James, 2 daughters. Recognized the Latino family, the Rodriguezes, 3 boys under age 8. Recognized the white families, the mixed families, the Asian families. Griffith Park Playground was microcosm of Los Angeles. Diverse, mostly harmonious, occasionally tense when cultural differences collided. Bruce found his usual bench, wooden bench under a tree that provided shade. Good sight line to the entire playground. He could see Brandon wherever he played, could supervise without hovering, could intervene if necessary, but usually didn't need to. Brandon was a careful kid, thoughtful, not reckless. Bruce had brought a book, Krishnamurti's Freedom from the Known, philosophy he was working through, always reading, always learning, but he mostly just watched Brandon. Watched his son run to the sandbox. Watched him grab a plastic bucket and shovel from the communal toy bin. Watch him find a spot and immediately start building. There were already 3 other kids in the sandbox. 2 girls, maybe 5 and 6 years old, building what looked like a village of small mounds. 1 boy, 7 or so, skinny, Focused, creating an elaborate moat system, Brandon found an empty corner and started his castle. He worked with intense concentration, packing sand into the bucket, tapping it carefully, inverting it perfectly, building a foundation, then another level, then another. Architectural principles applied to sand. Bruce smiled watching it. Brandon had Bruce's focus, Linda's patience. Good combination. Other parents sat on benches around the playground perimeter, some reading like Bruce, some chatting with each other, some on hyper alert, helicoptering their kids, interfering with every social interaction, preventing their children from learning to navigate conflict independently. Bruce had strong opinions about that parenting style, overprotective, creating fragile children who couldn't handle adversity. But he kept those opinions to himself. Everyone parents their own way. Everyone does their best. Judge less. Understand more. That was Bruce's philosophy about most things. At 11 o'clock, a new family arrived. Bruce noticed because everyone noticed. The father was impossible to miss. 6'4", 340 pounds. Built like a professional athlete because he had been one. Mike Garrett, former L.A. Rams linebacker, played 1965 through 1969 until a knee injury ended his career. Bruce knew who he was, not personally, but by reputation. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Mike. Loud, aggressive, coached his son Tyler's little league team, and was notorious for screaming at 8-year-olds about effort and toughness. The kind of coach parents either loved, finally someone teaching boys to be tough, or hated, he's traumatizing children over a game. Mike walked onto the playground like he owned it, taking up space, making noise. His son Tyler trailed behind him, 8 years old but big, already 5'2", 110 pounds. Big for his age the way Mike had been big for his age, using size to dominate. Learning from his father that physical dominance was how you established your place in the world. Mike found a bench, didn't ask if anyone was sitting there, just took it, and settled in. Pulled out a newspaper. Tyler went straight to the sandbox, straight to where Brandon and the 3 other kids were building. Bruce watched, noticed the body language immediately. Tyler wasn't going to the sandbox to play. He was going to establish dominance. Bruce recognized it. The swagger, the deliberate approach, the scanning to identify the best target. Tyler was hunting. Tyler surveyed the sandbox. The 2 girls building their village. Too easy, not worth it. The skinny boy with his moat. Possible but boring. Then Tyler saw Brandon's castle. Multi-level. Elaborate. The most impressive structure in the sandbox. And being built by a smaller kid. Mixed-race kid. Asian-looking kid. Perfect target. Tyler walked over to Brandon's castle. Stood over it. Brandon looked up, surprised by the shadow. "Hi," Brandon said. Friendly. Open. The way Bruce had taught him to greet people. "I'm building a castle. Want to help?" Tyler didn't respond. Just raised his foot. And stomped. Hard. Right in the middle of Brandon's castle. Sand exploded. The careful architecture collapsed. Hours of work destroyed in 1 second. Brandon stared at the ruins. His face showed shock. Confusion. Why would someone do that? Why would someone destroy something just because they could? "Your castle sucked anyway," Tyler said. Loud. Performative. Making sure the other kids heard. "You suck at building. What are you going to do about it, Chinese boy?" The racial slur hung in the air. The other kids in the sandbox went quiet. Uncomfortable. This had crossed the line. This wasn't normal playground roughness. This was cruelty. This was bullying. This was racism. Bruce watched from his bench. 30 yards away. Felt the flash of anger. His son being targeted, being called a slur, having his work destroyed, but controlled it instantly. This was teaching moment. For Brandon. Bruce had been preparing Brandon for this. Had been teaching him how to handle bullies, how to handle racism, how to handle people trying to provoke him into responding emotionally. Bruce had told Brandon many times, people will try to make you angry. They'll push you, call you names, destroy things you care about. They do this because they want a reaction. They want you to fight them so they can beat you and feel powerful. Don't give them that. Don't let them control you. Words are just sounds. They only hurt if you give them power. And broken things can be rebuilt. But if you fight when you don't need to, if you let anger control you, You become exactly what they want you to be. Choose your battles. Fight only when there's no other choice. Brandon remembered this teaching. Bruce could see it in his son's face. Could see Brandon processing, taking a breath, choosing his response. Brandon stood up, brushed sand off his hands, looked at Tyler, said calmly, clearly, with impressive emotional control for a 6-year-old, "That wasn't nice. I don't want to play with you. I'm going to play somewhere else now." And Brandon walked away, turned his back on Tyler, on the destroyed castle, on the provocation, walked toward the swings on the other side of the playground. Descalating, removing himself from conflict, choosing not to engage with someone whose only goal was to provoke. Bruce felt proud, deeply proud. Brandon had just demonstrated emotional maturity most adults never achieved, had followed Bruce's teaching perfectly, had chosen peace over pride, had controlled his anger instead of being controlled by it. This was exactly what Bruce wanted to teach. This was real strength. But then a voice cut across the playground. Loud, aggressive, angry. A voice that made every parent turn. Every kid stop playing. A voice that said, "This is not over." Brandon Lee. Mike Garrett was standing up from his bench, all 6'4", 340 pounds of him, staring at Brandon, at this 6-year-old boy who'd just walked away from Mike's son. "Get back here." What kind of boy walks away from a fight? What kind of man did your dad raise? The playground went silent, completely silent. Every parent staring, every child frozen. This wasn't normal. This wasn't okay. Parents didn't publicly shame other people's children, didn't yell across playgrounds about other families' parenting. Brandon froze mid-step, confused, scared. Was he in trouble? Had he done something wrong? The big man was yelling at him. Was Daddy going to be mad? Brandon looked back at Bruce. His father was still sitting on the bench, but Bruce's expression had changed. The calm had been replaced by something else, something focused, something calculating. Brandon had seen this look before, when Daddy was teaching, when Daddy was about to demonstrate something important. Mike Garrett started walking across the playground toward Bruce, each step deliberate, each step radiating aggression. Other parents physically moved their children away from Mike's path. Everyone knew Mike's reputation. Everyone knew he had a temper. Everyone knew you didn't want to be near him when he was angry. Mike reached Bruce's bench, stood directly in front of it, towering, using every inch of his 6'4" frame to loom over Bruce, who was still sitting. Physical intimidation, dominance display, the same techniques Mike had used his entire football career. Make yourself big, make the opponent feel small, establish dominance before the confrontation even begins. Bruce looked up at Mike, didn't stand yet, didn't react to the intimidation, just made eye contact, calm, waiting. Mike spoke loud enough that everyone could hear, loud enough that this was public challenge, loud enough that backing down would mean humiliation. Your kid just walked away from my kid. Tyler pushed him, tested him, and your boy did nothing. Just walked away like a coward, like a little bitch. What kind of man raises his son to be weak? To run from confrontation? To let himself be pushed around? In my family, in my house, we fight back. We stand our ground. We don't run away with our tail between our legs. You teaching your son to be a victim? Teaching him to be weak? Teaching him to be a pussy? The profanity was deliberate, meant to provoke, meant to force Bruce to respond. If Bruce stayed calm, he looked weak. If Bruce got angry, Mike had succeeded in controlling him. Classic dominance game. Bruce stood up, slowly, calmly. 5'7" facing 6'4". 145 pounds facing 340 pounds. The physical mismatch was absurd. Mike outweighed Bruce by 195 pounds. Had 6 inches of height. Was a professional athlete. Had been a professional athlete, trained to use his body as a weapon. But Bruce's expression showed no fear, no intimidación, just calm assessment, like a scientist looking at an interesting problem. Bruce spoke quietly, forcing Mike to listen instead of just reacting. I'm raising my son to choose his battles, to not waste energy on people trying to provoke him for entertainment, to have emotional control instead of being controlled by his emotions. Your son destroyed something Brandon built and used a racial slur. Brandon chose not to engage. That's not weakness. That's maturity. That's strength. The strength to recognize that some conflicts don't serve you and walk away from them. Mike laughed. Loud, mocking laugh. Maturity? He's 6 years old. 6-year-olds shouldn't be mature. They should be tough. They should stand their ground. They should show other kids they can't be pushed around. I played 4 years in the NFL. You know what happens to guys who back down? They get destroyed. Physically destroyed. Mentally destroyed. Eaten alive. The weak don't survive in this world. Your son needs to learn that now, before the world teaches him the hard way. Before some kid beats the shit out of him because he won't defend himself. Bruce remained calm. The NFL isn't real life. Football is controlled violence with rules and referees. Life requires different skills. Emotional intelligence. Conflict resolution. The ability to recognize which battles matter and which battles are just ego. Knowing when to fight and when to walk away. I'm teaching Brandon those skills. What are you teaching Tyler? Mike's face flushed. I'm teaching Tyler to be a man. To stand up for himself. To never back down. To fight back when someone pushes him. Real masculinity. Traditional values. Not this soft, passive, Asian philosophy bullshit you're selling. This is America. American boys fight back. They don't run away crying. They don't let themselves be disrespected. They establish dominance. They show strength. That's what makes men. That's why I'm teaching my son. What you're teaching yours is how to be a victim. The racist undertone was clear. Mike wasn't just challenging Bruce's parenting. He was challenging Bruce's cultural background, suggesting that Asian values, emotional control, strategic restraint, choosing battles wisely, were inferior to American values, aggression, never backing down, physical dominance. The watching parents had different reactions. Some nodded agreement with Mike. This was a common perspective in 1971 America. Traditional masculinity was strong. The idea that boys needed to be tough, needed to fight, needed to establish dominance. Some looked uncomfortable, recognizing the racism, recognizing the toxicity, but not wanting to intervene, not wanting to become targets themselves. Susan Park, Korean-American mother who'd been watching from another bench, felt the familiar tension. She'd faced this too. The cultural clash between Asian parenting values and American aggressive masculinity. The assumption that teaching emotional control meant raising weak children. The racism disguised as concern about parenting. She watched Bruce carefully, wondering how he'd respond. Brandon was still standing frozen near the swings, watching his father. Scared. Was Daddy in danger? This man was so big, so loud, so angry. Did Brandon get Daddy in trouble by walking away? Should Brandon have fought Tyler? Should Brandon go help Daddy now? Tyler watched his father too. Watched Daddy establish dominance over this little Chinese man. This was what Daddy always taught. Be big, be loud, be aggressive, make people back down. Daddy was showing everyone how a real man handles disrespect. Tyler felt proud, felt validated, felt like his destruction of Brandon's castle had been the right thing because it led to this, Daddy proving that the Garrett family doesn't back down to anyone. Bruce looked at Mike, at this massive man who'd spent his entire life using physical dominance to control situations, who'd been rewarded for that his whole life. Athletic scholarships, NFL contract, respect from other men who valued traditional masculinity. Mike had never learned that there were other forms of strength, had never encountered situations where size and aggression weren't the answer. Bruce made his decision. This man needed to be taught, and the watching children, especially Brandon and Tyler, needed to see the lesson, needed to understand that real strength wasn't what Mike believed it was. You believe physical strength equals real strength, Bruce said calmly. That violence is the answer when challenged. That real men never back down. That size and aggression are what makes someone powerful. That dominance is what earns respect. Okay, let's test that philosophy. Let's demonstrate it for all these children watching. You want to teach my son what real masculinity looks like? Do it. Hit me. Right now. In front of all these people. In front of your son. In front of my son. Show Brandon what a real man does when someone disagrees with him. Show these kids that violence solves conflicts. I won't defend myself. I won't block. I won't counter. I'll just stand here. Free shot. Prove your philosophy. Prove that might makes right. Prove that size matters. Prove that backing down is always wrong. Go ahead. I'm giving you permission. Hit me. The playground went even more silent. If that was possible, every parent staring in disbelief. Did this small Chinese man just invite a 340-pound NFL linebacker to hit him? Was this suicide? Was this insane? Mike stared at Bruce, completely confused. This wasn't how confrontations worked. People didn't invite violence. They avoided it or threatened it or engaged in it. But they didn't calmly offer themselves as punching bags while simultaneously making it sound like hitting them would prove you were weak. Bruce continued, his voice carrying across the playground, making sure everyone could hear, making sure this was public teaching moment. Or you can make a different choice. You can walk away. You can de-escalate. You can demonstrate emotional control instead of being controlled by your emotions. You can show these kids, show your son, that the strongest thing a man can do is exactly what my 6-year-old son just did. Recognize that a conflict doesn't serve you and choose not to engage. That's real strength. That's real masculinity. Having the power to hurt someone and choosing not to. Having the ability to dominate and choosing restraint instead. My son just demonstrated that. At age 6, are you, a grown man, a professional athlete, someone who should understand discipline and control? Are you capable of the same thing? Or does your model of masculinity only work when you're the biggest person in the conflict? When you can use size to intimidate? When you never face anyone who won't back down to your aggression? Mike's face showed confusion, anger, wounded pride, all mixing together. He was being challenged in a way he'd never been challenged before. Usually when Mike confronted people, they either backed down immediately, intimidated by his size, or they got angry and confrontational, which let Mike justify using physical force. But Bruce wasn't doing either. Bruce wasn't backing down, but he also wasn't getting angry. He was just calmly inviting Mike to hit him while simultaneously making hitting him seem like the weak choice. It was psychological judo. Mike's entire worldview was being turned against him. "You're asking for this," Mike said, his voice uncertain now, not as confident. "You understand that? I'm twice your size. I was a professional athlete, professional linebacker. I know how to hit. I know how to hurt people. One punch from me would put you in the hospital. And you're volunteering for this? You're asking me to hit you." "I'm teaching," Bruce said. "Teaching my son. Teaching your son. Teaching everyone here watching. Sometimes the best way to teach is through demonstration. Through showing instead of telling. So demonstrate. Show us what NFL-level physical dominance looks like against someone who doesn't respect size, who doesn't fear aggression, who spent his entire life training specifically to defeat people exactly like you. People who rely on attributes, size, strength, power, instead of skill. Show us. Whenever you're ready. I'll make it even easier for you. You were a linebacker. Your specialty was tackling, bringing people down, using your weight and strength to dominate. Try to tackle me. Use your professional technique, your NFL training, your size advantage. Try to bring me to the ground, if you can, when you're ready." Now, it wasn't just an invitation to hit. It was a challenge to tackle, to use Mike's actual professional skill, to test whether NFL technique worked against someone who understood leverage, balance, and how to use an opponent's strength against them. Mike looked around the playground. Every parent watching, every child watching, his son Tyler watching, expecting Daddy to dominate this little guy, expecting Daddy to prove that the Garrett family never backs down. Mike couldn't walk away now, couldn't de-escalate. His entire identity, his entire model of masculinity was built on never backing down, on using physical dominance to establish control, on being the alpha. If he walked away from this 5'7" Chinese guy who was openly challenging him, he'd look weak. He'd be admitting his whole philosophy was wrong. He'd be proving that Bruce's model, restraint, emotional control, choosing battles, was superior to Mike's model, aggression, never backing down, physical dominance. Mike made his choice, the only choice his worldview allowed. "You asked for this," Mike said, and charged. 340 pounds of former professional athlete moving with surprising speed for someone his size. NFL linebacker, tackling technique. Low center of gravity, driving with the legs, wrapping with the arms, using momentum and mass to bring the opponent down. The same technique that had brought down running backs, quarterbacks, receivers for 4 years in professional football. Mike had used this technique hundreds of times against athletes weighing 200, 220, 250 pounds, against professional football players trained to resist tackles. He'd always succeeded, always brought them down. Size and technique were unstoppable combination. Bruce stood perfectly still, didn't move, didn't flinch. Just watch Mike come. Watch the technique. Watch the angle. Watch the momentum. Calculated everything in the fraction of a second he had. Mike lowered his shoulder, aimed for Bruce's center mass, tried to wrap his massive arms around Bruce's torso, tried to drive Bruce backwards down into the ground, and found nothing. Bruce moved at the last possible instant, shifted his weight, turned his body, let Mike's momentum carry him forward. Mike's arms closed on empty space. Mike's shoulder hit nothing. Mike's 340 pounds of force met no resistance, and therefore had nothing to stop it. Bruce placed one hand on the back of Mike's neck, light touch, guiding not forcing. Used Mike's own momentum, added a slight pull. Basic judo principle: when someone pushes, pull. When someone charges, get out of the way and help them continue in the direction they chose. Mike crashed to the ground, face first. His own momentum, his own technique, his own choice to charge. Bruce hadn't hit him, hadn't struck him, hadn't used force. Just moved, just guided, just let physics work. The playground gasped. Collective intake of breath from 20 parents and 15 kids watching. The giant had fallen. The unstoppable force had met not an immovable object, but an absent object. And the force had destroyed itself. Mike pushed himself up, confused, embarrassed, angry. What has happened? How did he miss? How did this little guy make him fall without even hitting him? Mike charged again. Different angle. More controlled. Not going to be fooled twice. Go to grab this guy, wrap him up, use wrestling instead of tackling. Get hands on him and use the 195-pound weight advantage to crush him. Bruce sidestepped again. Different direction this time. Unpredictable. As Mike passed, Bruce stuck out his foot. Not a kick, just an obstacle. Mike's momentum carried him over the obstacle. Mike fell again. Harder this time. Landed on his side. Air exploded from his lungs. The watching kids didn't understand what they were seeing. Didn't understand the technique. Just saw the big scary man falling over and over. Saw the small calm man not even trying hard. It looked like magic. Like the big man was fighting himself and losing. Brandon watched his father. Understanding dawning. Daddy wasn't scared. Daddy was teaching. Daddy was showing everyone that being big didn't matter. Being angry didn't matter. What mattered was skill, control, understanding. Daddy had all of that. The big man had none of it. Tyler watched his father, his invincible father, his NFL player father, his hero father, fall twice. Get embarrassed twice. Fail twice. Tyler's worldview was cracking. Daddy always said size mattered. Daddy always said be aggressive. Daddy always said never back down. But Daddy was losing. Daddy was being humiliated by someone half his size who wasn't even fighting back. Who was just moving, just being calm, just letting Daddy defeat himself. Mike got up again, breathing hard now, not from exertion, from emotion, from anger, from humiliation, from the horrible realization that nothing he was doing was working, that his size meant nothing, that his NFL training meant nothing, that this little Chinese guy was operating on a completely different level that Mike didn't understand. Mike threw a punch. Wild. Desperate. Haymaker, right hand, aimed at Bruce's head. Trying to just hit something. Trying to land one shot. Trying to prove he wasn't completely useless. Bruce caught the punch. Not blocked it, caught it. His left hand intercepted Mike's wrist mid-swing. Controlled it. Bruce's right hand came up underneath Mike's elbow. Bruce twisted. Subtle rotation. Basic Wing Chun lock. Mike's arm bent at an angle arms aren't designed to bend. Mike's shoulder joint started to separate. Pain shot through Mike's arm. Immediate. Intense. The kind of pain that says something is about to break. Mike froze. Couldn't move. Moving would make it worse. would dislocate his shoulder, would cause permanent damage. Bruce held Mike in the lock. Controlled. Not violent. Just precise. Just enough pressure to control. Not enough to injure. The difference between dominating someone and teaching them. Bruce spoke quietly. Only Mike could hear. I could break your arm right now. Could dislocate your shoulder. Could end your ability to use this arm for months. But I'm not going to. Because that's not what strength is. Strength isn't hurting people when you can. Strength is having the ability to hurt people and choosing not to. That's what I'm teaching my son. That's what you should be teaching yours. Now, are you ready to listen? Or should I keep demonstrating? Mike's voice came out strained. Humiliated. Defeated. I'm listening. Bruce released the lock. Gently. Gradually. Letting Mike's arm return to normal position without sudden movement that might cause injury. Mike stepped back, cradling his arm. Not injured, but hurting. Ego bruised worse than body. The playground remained silent. Everyone had just witnessed something they'd never seen before. A tiny man, 5'7", 145 pounds, completely dominate a giant, 6'4", 340 pounds, without throwing a single strike, without causing injury, just demonstrating absolute control, absolute skill, absolute superiority of technique over size. Bruce turned to address not just Mike, but all the watching parents, all the watching children, making this public lesson, making this moment matter. My son walked away from a conflict that didn't serve him. That's what I taught him. That's what I'm proud of him for. He didn't walk away because he was scared. He didn't walk away because he was weak. He walked away because he chose to. Because fighting your son would have accomplished nothing except making your son feel powerful for bullying someone smaller. Brandon denied him that. Denied your son the satisfaction of provocation. That's emotional control. That's real maturity. That's strength. What just happened here? Bruce gestured at Mike. This was me demonstrating that same principle. I didn't want to fight you. I wanted you to learn. Wanted your son to learn. Wanted all these kids to learn that size doesn't equal strength. That aggression doesn't equal power. That real masculinity is having the ability to dominate and choosing restraint. Choosing control. Choosing to teach instead of destroy. Bruce looked at Brandon. His son was watching with wide eyes. Processing. Learning. Brandon, come here, please. Brandon ran over. Still scared, but also curious. Trusting his father. Bruce knelt down to Brandon's eye level. You did the right thing today. Walking away from Tyler. Not fighting when you didn't need to fight. I'm very proud of you. Never let anyone tell you that walking away is weak. Walking away when fighting serves no purpose. That's wisdom. That's strength. That's what I'll always teach you. Understand? Brandon nodded. Yes, Daddy. But you didn't walk away. You fought the big man. I didn't fight him. I demonstrated. There's a difference. He challenged my teaching. Challenged what I'm trying to teach you. So I had to show him, show everyone, that what I'm teaching is right. That size doesn't matter. That skill matters. That control matters. That understanding matters. I could have walked away too. But then everyone here would think walking away is what you do when you're scared. When you can't win. I wanted everyone to see that walking away is what you do when you're strong enough to win, but wise enough to know winning doesn't serve you. Sometimes teaching requires demonstration. This was one of those times. Bruce stood, looked at Mike. Your son, Tyler. He destroyed my son's sandcastle and used a racial slur. He did that because you've taught him that dominance is strength. That being big means being powerful. That pushing others down makes you strong. But what happened here today showed him something different. Showed him that his father, his hero, is vulnerable when he meets someone who understands real strength. I'm not telling you how to raise your son, but I'm telling you that the world is changing. Physical dominance used to be enough. It's not anymore. The world rewards intelligence now. Emotional control, the ability to collaborate instead of dominate. If all you teach Tyler is how to be big and aggressive, you're preparing him for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Think about that. Mike stood there, humiliated, defeated, but also, maybe, learning. His face showed confusion, pain, wounded pride. But underneath all that, maybe the first crack in his certainty. The first moment of doubt in the philosophy he'd built his entire life on. Tyler stood near the sandbox watching his father, his invincible father, his hero, standing there defeated by a man half his size. Tyler didn't know what to think, didn't know what to feel. Everything Daddy had taught him, be big, be aggressive, dominate, had just failed. Completely. Publicly. Daddy had looked weak. Daddy had lost. Did that mean everything Daddy taught was wrong? Susan Park watched from her bench, felt tears in her eyes. She'd spent 10 years in America being told that Asian parenting values, emotional control, restraint, choosing battles, were inferior. We're making weak children. We're setting kids up to be victims. And she just watched Bruce Lee, a man half the size of a professional athlete, prove that Asian values were superior. That emotional control beats aggression. That wisdom beats force. That skill beats size. She wanted to applaud, wanted to cheer, wanted to thank Bruce for demonstrating what she'd always believed but had been afraid to defend publicly. Other parents had mixed reactions. Some were horrified. Violence at a children's playground, even controlled violence, even teaching violence, was inappropriate. Some were impressed. This small man had just embarrassed a bully who'd been terrorizing this playground for months. Some were confused. They didn't understand what they'd just seen, didn't understand how Bruce had dominated Mike without actually fighting, didn't have framework for understanding this kind of skill. The children would talk about this for years, would tell their friends, would exaggerate, would mythologize. The day the small Chinese man made the giant fall over and over without even hitting him. The day magic happened. The day they learned that size didn't matter. The day their understanding of strength changed forever. Bruce picked up his book from the bench, took Brandon's hand. "Come on, son. Let's go home. Your mother is making lunch." As they walked toward the parking lot, Brandon looked back at the playground, at Tyler standing alone near the destroyed sandcastle, at Mike still standing where Bruce had left him, processing, learning, changing. "Daddy, will Tyler still be mean to me?" Bruce considered. "I don't know. Maybe. People don't change quickly. But I think Tyler saw something today that confused him. Saw his father's model of strength fail. That might make him rethink. Or it might make him angrier. We'll see. But Brandon, remember this. You can't control how other people behave. You can only control how you respond. If Tyler is mean again, you do what you did today. Use your words. Walk away. Fight only if you absolutely have to. And if you have to fight, if someone is actually trying to hurt you or hurt someone else, then fight smart. Fight like I just showed you. Use their strength against them. Be calm. Be controlled. Be skilled. Size doesn't matter. Anger doesn't matter. Skill matters. Remember that." "I will, Daddy. Can we get ice cream on the way home?" Bruce laughed. 6 years old. Watched his father dominate a giant. And now wanted ice cream. Perfect. Normal. Exactly what childhood should be. Yes. Ice cream sounds perfect. They drove home. Bruce didn't think about the confrontation much. Didn't dwell on it. Had taught what needed teaching. Had demonstrated what needed demonstrating. Had defended his son and his parenting philosophy. Now it was done. Move on. Focus on the present. On Brandon. On ice cream. On the normal afternoon waiting at home. Bruce had no idea the confrontation wouldn't end there. Had no idea Susan Park had watched everything and would tell the story to everyone she knew. Had no idea the story would spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Had no idea that by Monday morning, everyone in a 5-mile radius would be talking about the playground fight. The legend of the day Bruce Lee embarrassed an NFL linebacker without throwing a punch. Had no idea that Mike Garrett, humiliated, defeated, forced to question everything he believed, would spend the next 3 days replaying the confrontation in his mind, trying to understand what had happened, trying to reconcile his entire worldview. Size equals strength, aggression equals dominance, never backing down equals masculinity, with the reality of being completely controlled by a man who weighed 195 pounds less than him. Mike sat in his living room Sunday night. Tyler was asleep. Mike's wife, Karen, was reading in the bedroom. Mike was alone with a beer and his thoughts. His shoulder still ached where Bruce had locked it. Not injured, Bruce had been careful, controlled, precise, but sore. a physical reminder of his humiliation. Mike kept replaying it. The charges that meant nothing. The falls that seemed impossible. The punch that was caught midair like Bruce had known exactly where it would be before Mike had even decided to throw it. The lock. The pain. The absolute helplessness of being controlled by someone half his size. Mike had been in thousands of physical confrontations. Football practices. Games. Street fights when he was younger. Bar fights. He'd always won. Always. Because he was bigger. Stronger. More aggressive. His entire life, those attributes had been enough. Had been everything. But against Bruce Lee, they'd been nothing. Worse than nothing, they'd been liabilities. His size had made him slow. His strength had worked against him when Bruce used his momentum. His aggression had made him predictable, readable, easy to counter. And Bruce hadn't even broken a sweat. Hadn't gotten angry. Hadn't tried to hurt Mike. Had just calmly demonstrated that everything Mike believed about strength was incomplete. Wrong. Childish. That was the word that kept coming to Mike's mind. Childish. Bruce had made Mike feel like a child. Like someone who understood nothing about real combat. Real strength. Real control. Mike, former professional athlete, someone who'd made a career out of physical dominance, had been schooled by a martial arts instructor who looked like he couldn't bench press 150. The humiliation burned. But underneath the humiliation was something else. Something Mike didn't want to acknowledge, but couldn't ignore. Curiosity. Respect. Wonder. How had Bruce done that? What had Mike just witnessed? Was there really a level of skill that made size irrelevant? And more importantly, more disturbingly, what was Mike teaching Tyler? Mike had built Tyler's entire understanding of masculinity on the model Mike himself followed. Be big. Be aggressive. Never back down. Dominate or be dominated. Win through strength. But Bruce had just proven that model was obsolete. Had proven there was another way. A better way. A way that didn't require being the biggest person in the room. A way that worked through understanding instead of dominating. Through skill instead of strength. Tyler had watched his father lose. Completely. Publicly. Tyler's hero, his model for what men should be, had been embarrassed by someone who embodied everything Mike had taught Tyler to dismiss as weak. What had that done to Tyler's understanding of the world? What had that done to the foundation Mike had been building Tyler's identity on? Mike realized with uncomfortable clarity he'd been raising Tyler to be him, to repeat Mike's life, to value the same things Mike valued, to measure strength the same way Mike measured it, to be a smaller version of Mike Garrett. But was that actually good? Was Mike Garrett, sitting alone at 43 years old, divorced from his football career by injury, working construction, drinking beer alone while replaying a humiliating defeat, was that really what Mike wanted Tyler to become? Mike's phone rang. Late for a phone call, almost 10 p.m. Mike answered. Mike, it's Susan Park, from the playground. Mike tensed. Was this about yesterday? Was she calling to complain? To threaten legal action? Bruce hadn't injured Mike, but the confrontation had been public, had involved children, could be framed as assault if someone wanted to make trouble. What do you want? Mike said. Defensive. Aggressive. Default mode. Susan's voice was careful. Not angry. Not confrontational. Just direct. I'm calling because I think you should talk to Bruce Lee. Really talk to him. Not fight him. Talk. About parenting. About teaching boys to be men. About what happened yesterday. I think you could learn something. I think you want to learn something. If you're willing to set aside your pride for an hour. Mike's first instinct was to refuse. To hang up. To tell this woman to mind her own business. His pride demanded it. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the genuine lack of judgment in Susan's voice. Maybe it was the curiosity Mike couldn't suppress. Maybe it was the uncomfortable awareness that he was sitting alone drinking beer while replaying his defeat, and that pattern needed to change. Why do you care? Mike asked. Because I watched what happened, Susan said. I watched Bruce teach everyone there's something about real strength, about emotional control, about choosing battles. And I watched your face, watched you processing, watched you learning even though you didn't want to. You're not a stupid man, Mike. You're not a bad man. You're just a limited man. Someone who's only ever learned one way to be strong. Bruce could teach you other ways, if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to be humble enough to ask. He embarrassed me, in front of my son, in front of everyone. Why would I want to learn from someone who humiliated me? He didn't embarrass you to hurt you. He embarrassed you to teach you. There's a difference. He could have injured you, could have broken your arm, could have really humiliated you by making you scream or beg. He didn't. He controlled everything, kept you safe while demonstrating you had no chance against him. That's teaching, not bullying. If you can see that, if you can get past your pride long enough to understand that, you might learn something that changes your life. Changes Tyler's life. Your choice. Susan gave Mike a phone number. Bruce's home number. Said Bruce had agreed to talk if Mike called. Said Bruce actually respected Mike for being willing to question his assumptions. Said the offer was open whenever Mike was ready. Mike wrote down the number. Didn't commit to calling, but didn't tear up the paper either. Put it on the refrigerator, where he'd see it every day. A reminder of the choice he had. Stay the same. Or learn. Grow. Change. 3 days later, Wednesday evening, Mike called. Linda answered. Hello. This is Mike Garrett. Is Bruce there? Linda recognized the name. Bruce had told her about the playground confrontation, about the linebacker who'd challenged his parenting, about the demonstration. Linda had been horrified. You fought someone at a children's playground? But also understanding. Bruce had needed to defend his teaching, needed to show Brandon that walking away was strength, not weakness. One moment, Linda handed the phone to Bruce. This is Bruce. It's Mike. Mike Garrett. From a playground. I remember. Silence. Mike didn't know what to say. How do you ask the person who humiliated you to teach you? How do you admit you were wrong? How do you set aside pride? Bruce made it easier. You're calling because you want to understand. What happened? How it happened? Why your size and strength didn't matter. You're calling because you watched your son watch you lose, and you're wondering what that taught him. You're calling because you're questioning whether the way you've been living, the way you've been parenting, is actually right. Am I close? Yes. Mike's voice was quiet, defeated, honest, good. Questioning is the beginning of learning. Certainty is the end of growth. The fact that you're calling, that you're willing to admit you might not know everything, that's strength. Real strength. More strength than charging at me took. More strength than most men ever find. So yes, I'll talk to you. I'll teach you if you're genuinely willing to learn. But you have to understand, what I teach isn't about fighting. It's about understanding yourself, understanding conflict, understanding what real strength means. Are you ready for that? Or are you just looking for fighting techniques you can add to your arsenal? I don't know what I'm looking for, Mike admitted. I just know what I've been doing isn't working. Tyler is becoming me. And watching you make me look like a fool made me realize maybe being me isn't something I should be proud of. Maybe I've been measuring strength wrong my whole life. Maybe I've been teaching Tyler wrong. I don't know. I am confused. I am angry. I am embarrassed. But I'm calling because I want to understand. I want to learn. If you're willing to teach someone who challenged you, who called you names, who tried to hurt you, I am willing. Come to my school. Friday evening, 7 p.m. Address is 628 College Street in Chinatown. Come alone. Come ready to listen. Come ready to question everything you think you know. We'll talk. And if you're serious, if you're genuinely ready to learn, we'll train. I'll teach you what I taught you Saturday was just the beginning. There's much more, much deeper understanding. But it requires humility. Requires accepting that you're a beginner. Can you do that? Can you, former NFL linebacker, someone who's been physically dominant your entire life, can you accept being the weakest person in the room and learn from that? Mike thought about this. Could he? His entire identity was built on being the strongest, the biggest, the most dominant. Could he set that aside? Could he be humble? He thought about Tyler, about the look on Tyler's face watching his father fall, about the confusion in Tyler's eyes, about the foundation Mike had been building, teaching Tyler to measure himself by how much he could dominate others, and whether that foundation was worth building on. I can do that, Mike said. I can be humble. I can learn. I don't want to be what I am anymore. I want to be something else, something better, something my son can actually be proud of instead of just scared of. Then I'll see you Friday, 7 p.m. Don't be late. Bruce hung up. Linda looked at him. You're really going to teach him? The man who called our son a coward? Who challenged you at a children's playground? He's not a bad man. He's just a scared man who learned the wrong lessons about strength. He was taught that size and aggression equal power, that backing down equals weakness, that real men dominate. And he believed it because it worked for him. It got him into the NFL, got him respect, got him status, but it also limited him, made him one-dimensional, made him unable to handle situations where size doesn't matter. He's ready to learn now, ready to understand that real strength is more complex than he thought. I'd be a poor teacher if I refused to teach someone who's genuinely ready to learn. Friday evening, 7 p.m. Mike Garrett walked into Bruce Lee's Los Angeles school, the Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute, small storefront in Chinatown. 20 students training, mixed ages, races, sizes. Some looked like martial artists. Some looked like regular people. Some were huge. Some were tiny. All training together. All learning. Bruce was in the center demonstrating cheese saw with a student. Sensitivity training. Hands connected, feeling each other's energy, responding to pressure, maintaining contact while flowing through positions. It looked like dancing. Looked nothing like fighting. Looked soft, gentle, weak. But Mike had learned at the playground that appearances meant nothing. Bruce finished the demonstration, dismissed the students for a water break, walked over to Mike. "You came. I said I would." Many people say they'll do things. Fewer actually do them, especially when doing them requires humility. You're already ahead of most people. Cool, mate. We'll talk first, then train, then talk more. Learning happens in cycles. Information, experience, integration. We'll do all three tonight. Bruce led Mike to a small office in the back of the school. 2 chairs, desk covered in books, philosophy, martial arts, anatomy, physics. Bruce gestured for Mike to sit. "Tell me about your relationship with your son," Bruce said. "Not what you think you should say. What's actually true? Are you close? Does he respect you? Fear you? Love you? Both? Neither?" Mike struggled with this. Had never articulated it before. "He respects me, I think. He does what I tell him. Doesn't talk back much. Tries hard in Little League because he knows I'm watching. But I don't know if we're close. I don't know if he loves me or if he's just scared of disappointing me. I don't know if he's trying to make me proud or trying to avoid making me angry. I don't know the difference. I don't know how to tell. When you were a child, what was your relationship with your father?" "My dad was military. Marines. Deployed a lot. When he was home, he was strict. Discipline. Rules. You didn't question him. You didn't cry. You didn't show weakness. Real men don't cry. Real men don't complain. Real men take pain without flinching. He taught me that. Beat it into me when necessary. I hated him for it when I was young, but it made me tough. Made me successful. Football coaches loved me because I didn't quit. Didn't complain about pain. Played through injuries. That toughness, that's what got me into the NFL. So my dad's method worked. Didn't it? Did it? You're 43. Divorced from football. Working construction. Drinking alone. Sitting in my school admitting you don't know if your son loves you. Admitting you're repeating your father's parenting because it's the only model you know. Does that sound like it worked? Or does that sound like it created a man who can dominate physically but can't connect emotionally? Can't build relationships? Can't understand himself? Mike felt anger flash, but underneath the anger was recognition. Truth. Bruce was right. Mike's father's method had created a tough man, but not a happy one, not a complete one, not a man who understood himself or could connect with his son or could navigate life's challenges that didn't involve physical dominance. So what's the alternative? Mike asked. Raise weak kids? Raise soft kids who can't handle adversity? Raise kids who cry when things get hard? False choice. You're assuming the only options are tough but broken or soft but weak. There's a third option, strong and whole. Tough where toughness matters. Soft where softness matters. Able to fight when necessary. Able to walk away when fighting serves no purpose. Emotionally intelligent enough to know the difference. That's what I'm teaching, Brandon. That's what I could teach you. If you're willing to unlearn what your father taught you. Willing to build a new model of masculinity that doesn't require dominating others to feel powerful. How? How do I do that? I don't know how to be anything other than what I am. Start by being honest with yourself. About your father. About what his method cost you. About what you're costing Tyler by repeating it. Your father taught you to bury emotions. to see vulnerability as weakness, to never admit pain or fear or doubt. That created a man who's tough on the outside, but empty on the inside. A man who can't access his own emotions, so he definitely can't help his son access his. You want to be different with Tyler? Start by admitting what your father did to you. Not what he gave you, toughness, but what he took from you, emotional wholeness. The ability to feel, the ability to connect, the ability to be human instead of just being hard. Mike felt something crack inside him, felt tears coming, tried to suppress them. Real men don't cry. That was the rule. That was what his father had beaten into him. But Bruce saw, cry if you need to. Tears aren't weakness. Tears are release. Tears are your body processing emotion your mind can't handle. If you can't cry, if you've trained yourself to suppress that natural response, then you can't fully feel, can't fully heal, can't fully be human. Your father taught you crying was weakness. He was wrong. Crying is strength. The strength to admit you're in pain. The strength to let yourself feel instead of burying everything. Mike cried. For the first time since he was 8 years old, since his father had beaten him for crying after a football injury and told him tears were for girls, Mike let himself cry. Let himself feel. Let himself admit that his father's method had hurt him, had damaged him, had created toughness by destroying wholeness. Bruce sat quietly, letting Mike process, letting Mike discover that crying didn't kill him, didn't make him weak, actually made him feel lighter, more real, more human. After several minutes, Mike composed himself, wiped his eyes, saw that was, don't apologize. You just did something most men never do. You admitted you're in pain, admitted your father hurt you, admitted you've been hurting Tyler the same way. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of real strength. Now we can build from here. Now you can learn what strength actually means. Ready? Mike nodded. Bruce took Mike to the training floor, showed him basic wing chun structure, stance, center line, economy of motion, explained that fighting wasn't about being stronger, was about being smarter, more efficient, more understanding of leverage in anatomy and physics. Showed Mike how someone 100 pounds lighter could control someone 100 pounds heavier if they understood structure better, if they used the heavier person's weight against them, if they stayed calm while the heavier person got emotional. Showed Mike that everything Mike had relied on his entire life, size, strength, aggression, were crutches that had prevented him from developing real skill, real understanding, real martial ability. Mike trained for 2 hours, left exhausted, humbled, but also excited. For the first time in years, maybe ever, Mike felt like he was learning something real, something deeper than just techniques, something that might actually change him. Mike came back the following Tuesday, and the following Thursday, and the following Saturday, week after week, month after month, training with Bruce, learning Wing Chun, learning Jeet Kune Do philosophy, learning that strength was more complex than he'd thought, learning to be a different kind of father. 3 months after the playground confrontation, July 1971, Mike took Tyler to the same Griffith Park playground. Saturday morning, same time, same place where Mike had been humiliated. But this time was different. Tyler and Brandon were both there, both in the sandbox, both building castles, not competing, collaborating, building a castle together. Brandon designing, Tyler providing muscle for the big structural elements, working his team. Mike and Bruce sat on benches near each other, not enemies, not exactly friends, but something else, teacher and student. 2 fathers navigating the complexity of raising boys in a world that was changing, that required different models of masculinity than their fathers had taught them. Tyler's different, Bruce observed. Gentler, more collaborative, less aggressive. What changed? I changed, Mike said. Stopped teaching him to dominate. Started teaching him to understand. Stopped coaching Little League by screaming. Started actually teaching technique. Explaining why instead of just demanding results. Stopped measuring his worth by how tough he was. Started measuring it by how much he learned, how much he grew, how much he helped others. He's responding, becoming different, better, more whole. You're different too. 3 months ago, you charged at me, try and tackle me. Today you can do basic cheese saw without getting frustrated when you can't muscle through. That's growth. Real growth. Not just learning techniques. Learning to be a different kind of man. I still don't understand half of what you're teaching, Mike admitted. Still don't understand how someone your size can control someone my size. Still don't fully believe that skill beats strength. Part of me still thinks I should be able to overpower you. Good. Doubt is healthy. Keeps you questioning. Keeps you learning. The day you think you understand everything is the day you stop growing. Keep that doubt. Keep that beginner's mind. Keep training. Keep learning. Keep becoming. That's the journey. There's no destination. Just continuous improvement. They watched their sons play. Watch Tyler, former bully, help Brandon build a castle. Watch Brandon, former victim, teach Tyler architectural principles that made the castle stronger. Watch two boys who'd been enemies become friends because their fathers had done the same. Thank you, Mike said, for not walking away that day, for teaching me, for not giving up on me even though I was an asshole who deserved to be dismissed. You changed my life, changed Tyler's life, changed how I understand what it means to be a man, to be a father. I'll carry that forever. You're welcome. But understand, I didn't change you. You changed you. I just created the opportunity, gave you the tools, pointed you in a direction. You did the work. You set aside your pride. You admitted you were wrong. You chose to learn instead of staying defensive. That's all you. That's your strength. That's the real masculinity I was trying to demonstrate that day. The strength to admit you don't know everything, to accept teaching, to grow. You found that. I just helped you see it was there. July 20th, 1973. Bruce Lee died in Hong Kong. Cerebral edema. Age 32. The news devastated the martial arts world. Devastated everyone who trained with him. Everyone who'd learned from him. Everyone whose life he'd changed. Mike Garrett was 45 years old when Bruce died. He'd been training with Bruce for 2 years. Had transformed from aggressive ex-linebacker to thoughtful martial artist. From domineering father to present, engaged parent. From man who measured strength through dominance to man who understood strength through restraint. Mike went to Bruce's funeral in Seattle. Stood in the back with hundreds of others. Mourned the teacher who'd given him a second chance at being a father. At being a man. At being whole. Linda Lee spoke briefly with Mike afterward. Bruce talked about you sometimes. About the playground. About how proud he was that you'd been willing to learn. Willing to change. He said teaching someone who starts as an opponent is more rewarding than teaching someone who starts as a willing student. Because it proves people can change, can grow, can become better versions of themselves. Thank you for being willing to change. For proving Bruce's teaching worked. He saved my relationship with my son, Mike said. I was raising Tyler to be me. Broken, tough, emotionally unavailable. Bruce showed me another way. Showed me I could be strong without being hard. Could be masculine without being aggressive. Could teach my son to be a man without destroying his humanity. I owe him everything. Years passed. Tyler grew up. Became a teacher. Not a football player like his grandfather wanted. Not a construction worker like his father became. A teacher. Elementary school. Teaching young boys. Many from tough backgrounds. Many being raised by fathers who valued toughness over wholeness. A different model of masculinity. Tyler told the playground story to his students. Told them about the day his father charged at a small martial artist and lost. About the day Tyler's worldview shattered. About the day Tyler learned that real strength wasn't size, wasn't aggression, wasn't dominance, was control, was understanding, was having the power to hurt and choosing not to. Told them about how that one confrontation, that one Saturday morning at a playground, had changed 2 families. Had changed how 2 fathers understood parenting. Had changed how 2 sons understood what it meant to become men. 2020. Tyler Garrett was 57 years old. His father Mike had died 2 years earlier at age 90. Lived to 90. Healthy, active, practicing martial arts until the last year of his life. Teaching what Bruce had taught him. Passing it down. Tyler's own son, Mike's grandson, also named Michael, was 8 years old. Same age Tyler had been during the playground confrontation. Tyler took young Michael to the same Griffith Park playground. Saturday morning. The equipment had been replaced. Modern plastic instead of vintage metal. rubber mulch instead of sand, but the space was the same. Young Michael played, climbed, slid, met other kids, and inevitably encountered a bully. Bigger kid, older kid, someone who pushed Michael, tried to take his toy, used size to dominate. Young Michael looked at his father. Tyler nodded. Permission. Do what you were taught. Michael walked away, calmly, didn't fight, didn't cry, didn't let the bully provoke him, just removed himself from the conflict, found something else to do, chose his battle, chose not to fight. The bully's father, man in his 30s, covered in gym muscle, wearing a shirt that said alpha male, approached Tyler. Your kid, just let my kid push him around. You gonna teach him to stand up for himself? Or you raising a pussy? Tyler smiled. He'd heard this before, had heard it 49 years ago, had watched his father make this same challenge, had watched that challenge change everything. My son just demonstrated real strength, Tyler said calmly. The strength to recognize a conflict that doesn't serve him and walk away from it. That's emotional intelligence. That's maturity. That's what I'm teaching him. What are you teaching yours? The man's face flushed. I'm teaching him to be a man, to fight back, to not let people disrespect him. You know what happens to weak kids? They get eaten alive. Better to teach them young. Tyler felt the familiar pattern. The same argument his father had made. The same toxicity. The same limited understanding of what strength actually meant. You want to teach my son what real masculinity looks like? Tyler asked. Go ahead. Push me. Hit me. Show him. I won't defend myself. I'll just stand here. Prove that violence is the answer. Prove that size matters. Prove that aggression equals strength. Or, Tyler paused, you could walk away. You could demonstrate that the strongest thing a man can do is control his aggression. That real power is having the ability to dominate and choosing restraint instead. Your choice. The man stared, confused. This was the same challenge Bruce had made. The same reversal. The same teaching. Young Michael watched his father. Watched this big, angry man decide what to do. Watched his father stay calm. Stay controlled. Stay strong without being aggressive. The man walked away. Didn't push Tyler. Didn't hit him. Just walked away. Maybe learning. Maybe not. But at minimum, not escalating. Not teaching his son that violence solved conflicts. Not proving Tyler's point. Tyler knelt down to Michael's eye level. You did the right thing. Walking away from that boy. Not letting him provoke you. I'm very proud of you. Your grandfather would be proud of you. And the man who taught your grandfather, Bruce Lee, he'd be proud of you too. You just demonstrated what real strength looks like. What real masculinity means. Remember this. Remember that walking away when fighting doesn't serve you. That's wisdom. That's power. That's what makes you strong. Not fighting. Understanding when not to fight. Michael nodded. Daddy, why did that man's father want to hit you? Because he doesn't understand what you just demonstrated. He thinks strength is physical. Thinks real men never back down. Thinks fighting proves you're tough. He's wrong, but he doesn't know he's wrong yet. Maybe someday he'll learn. Maybe his son will teach him the way I taught my father. The way Bruce Lee taught both of us. That strength is more than muscles. More than aggression. More than size. Strength is understanding yourself. Controlling your emotions. Choosing your battles. Being whole instead of just being hard. They walked back to the car. Father and son. Third generation learning the lesson Bruce had taught on a playground 49 years earlier. The lesson that real strength was restraint. That real masculinity was emotional control. That real power was having the ability to hurt and choosing not to. The lesson that had changed the Garrett family. Had transformed Mike from bully to teacher. Had transformed Tyler from victim to educator. Was transforming Michael from scared child to confident young boy who understood that walking away was sometimes the strongest choice. The playground confrontation lived on, not as legend, not as myth, but as teaching, as transformation, as proof that one moment, one demonstration, one confrontation handled with wisdom instead of aggression could change generations. Bruce Lee had fought for 3 minutes that April morning in 1971, had dominated a man twice his size without throwing a punch, without causing injury, just demonstrating control, demonstrating skill. demonstrating that real strength was understanding, was restraint, was having power and choosing not to use it. And that 3-minute demonstration had rippled forward through time, through Mike learning, through Tyler teaching, through young Michael embodying, through thousands of retellings in the neighborhood, the community, the martial arts world, through the story becoming legend, through the legend becoming teaching tool, through the teaching tool changing how people understood masculinity, fatherhood, strength. 3 minutes in 1971. 50 years of impact. Generations changed. Lives transformed. Families healed. That's the power of teaching. Not destroying opponents. Creating students. Not proving you're strongest. Demonstrating what strength actually means. Not fighting to win. Fighting to teach. Bruce Lee's legacy wasn't his films. Wasn't his martial arts system. Wasn't his philosophy books. Was this the lives he changed? The students he created. The fathers he taught to be better fathers. The sons he helped become better men. The playground confrontation. The day Bruce Lee turned an enemy into a student. A bully into a teacher. A moment of potential violence into a lifetime of learning. That's real martial arts. That's real strength. That's real legacy. One Saturday morning. One playground. One confrontation. 50 years of transformation. And counting.